Let's build a monster. Hi guys, been a while. Again, yeah, I dropped one video last year and then I never did anything again. So hopefully I can change that this year, and no better way to do that by building a machine that's going to be able to take me places. So now that the fall semester is done, I can finally tackle something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, and that is build a computer from scratch. So as you can see, I have all the parts, and let's just jump right into it. So starting with the motherboard, I got the B650 Tomahawk by MSI, and let's just say that I was really happy to get a motherboard that was considered very powerful but also still fit my budget. It's got 4 RAM slots, 3 SSD slots, which I'm super hyped for because I definitely want to expand on that in the future. And I don't know if it's just me, but I think it's really pretty as well. So yeah, I'm very excited. So moving on to the processor, I chose the AMD Ryzen 7 7800X3D, which is arguably the fastest gaming CPU that you can get on the market right now, if I'm not mistaken, so that's awesome. I actually had to fight someone at Micro Center to get this because it was on sale for $300 at the time, and it was their last one. So yeah, I went through a bit of trouble to get this piece for sure. So as for memory, I went with 32 gigs of Trident Z5 RGB RAM, DDR5 of course, and my god are these things pretty. I mean, look at them. So as for storage, I have the trusty 2TB 980 Samsung Pro, and as I mentioned before, I'll probably be getting 2 more of these things as well as more RAM, since I do plan to film more in the future and I'll be having a machine that can handle that. So look for more videos in the future. I promise they're coming. So I went admittedly a little bit overkill for the PSU. It's 1200 watts and it's designed by Corsair. A big boy for sure, and hopefully it doesn't make a lot of noise. And in that same vein, I have the CPU cooler. It was actually a gift from my best friend's father. I won't say his name out of respect for him and his privacy, but he knows who he is, and once again, thank you so much, sir. If I'm not mistaken, this cooler is the Noctia NH U12A Chromax with its white heat sink cover. So hopefully it's a good CPU cooler, and once again, thank you. Also a gift from my best friend's father. This is his old overclocked Sapphire Nitro 6800 XT by AMD, and since it's overclocked, I think it might even beat out a 3080, maybe? I don't know. But regardless, I'm super happy that, and grateful of course, that he sold this high-end GPU to me. It's just plain awesome, so thank you once again. And housing all of these components is a beautiful white H6 Flow by NZXT. It's a dual chamber mid tower that's fairly popular right now, and it comes with 3 pre-installed fans that kind of face off to the right, so it really lets the user see all of their beautiful parts inside. So yeah, I'm a fan. Funnily enough, when I went to go buy it at Micro Center, the guy in front of me also happened to be buying an H6 Flow. So when we got rung up, the cashier noticed it, and he actually informed us that we were buying the 2 of the final 4 that were left in the store, so thank God. Alright, so enough chit chat, let's build this thing.
So first things first is unpacking the motherboard and getting it ready for mounting the CPU. In the box we've got some cool stickers, a few screws, the manual, power cable, and the antennas for the Wi-Fi along with the motherboard itself. As I mentioned before, this motherboard is an absolute beauty and will pair super well with the 7800X3D. One thing to know is that Intel CPUs and AMD CPUs are now quite different from each other. In the past, the motherboards have always had a socket for the CPU pins to drop into. However, with new AM5 sockets, it's the opposite. Connector pins are now on the motherboard instead of the CPU. Regardless, it's still pretty much the same procedure of carefully dropping the CPU into the socket, but I thought it was worth mentioning. You may also notice that there are a lot more pins on the board than with the previous CPUs, and that's because there are now over 1700 pins on this socket compared to the 1300 pins for the previous generation. Next up is RAM, so we'll be continuing by fitting the Z5s into slots A1 and B1 so that we can take advantage of dual channeling. All I gotta do is open the port latches and press the sticks down until they click into place. Next up is storage, which means removing the heatsink cover and dropping in the 980 Pro at an angle. For my 980 Pro, it already has its own little heatsink, which means I get to keep it in the full view whenever I look over my rig and see it in all its glory. I'm fairly certain there isn't a difference in which SSD slot to use, but I chose the one closest to the CPU just in case. All I gotta do is press down, secure the lock, and retighten the screws. After that, I can just take off these two protective brackets and replace them with a new adapter for the heatsink to sit on. I just need to add some feet so it's level with the CPU and screw in the new brackets. Next up is applying thermal paste. I know it's not conductive, so there's no real risk of applying a little bit more than what's needed, but I still wanted to do it in a good manner, so I followed this video by J2Cents, so shoutouts to him. So I just need to apply a generous amount and follow up by spreading out evenly with a spatula. Wait, that's not the right spatula. Okay, so that's the right spatula. And now for the CPU cooler. This thing is an absolute unit, which made me really worried about how the weight would affect the motherboard, but from what I've read, modern motherboards are designed with this in mind, so as long as I don't handle it rough, there won't be any stress cracks or bowing from the motherboard, which is a big relief. And if I ever do get an issue, I can always upgrade to an all-in-one cooler instead. Following the heatsink mount is our final step for this phase, which is just fitting the fans in place, and then we'll be finally set to drop in our board. I must admit, once I started unpacking the case, it really started to hit me just how close I was to finishing this build. The case is super gorgeous and super sleek with its big glass panels, so seeing it for the first time had me pretty excited. By this time, it was pretty late at night, so I ended up calling it for the day after unboxing the case, but I was determined to finish the build by the next day, so I got right to work after getting off to school, taking it apart. The most important thing for this step is making sure that I take off all the glass and any other removable panels that might obstruct me when mounting the board. Screwing down the board itself was easy as pie. It has 9 screws total, although since I had already mounted the heatsink, I ended up holding on to the last one. Regardless, the board will still remain secure, which means we can move on to plugging in our cables. We'll start off with the main 24-pin power supply and then follow up with both 8 pins for the CPU. With these cables already in place, I thought it best to unbox the power supply itself and just throw it into the case to see how I should position the cables around the block. It slid into the chassis perfectly, and I was finally able to plug in the main ATX cable as well as both 8 pins right after. Next is some smaller cables, being the jacks for the USB hubs, both 1 and 2, as well as the front panel, fans, and audio cables. Lastly is setting up my external hard drive as backup storage, or just in case I need to boot from something other than the M.2. All that's needed is a simple SATA plug, and we'll continue with remounting the housing. The last real step in this whole build is installing the graphics card, which I was profusely sweating about since it's literally the most expensive part, and you can tell I was nervous because I was slightly freaking out when it wouldn't slide into place, until I realized that I was just being an idiot and I did not lock the latch first.
Oh wait. There we go. Oh man, that could have been bad.
Following this though, I still couldn't fit the damn thing in and was worried that it was because my M.2 was blocking the port, or worse, my motherboard just didn't straight up support the card.
Oh my god, I hope it's not in the way.
But after fiddling with it for a while, it did manage to click into the board.
No way it doesn't fit. Oh, there we go. Hell yeah. Jesus Christ. Oh my god, that was scary.
After that, I can lock the card into place with some screws and attach the PCIe cables for power.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, this GPU is overclocked, which means I cannot put a splitter PCIe cable. I have to do 2 separate ones. So no this, no splitter.
And lastly, before putting all the panels back on, is just some basic wire management. The dual chamber really helps hide away all the mess. And now for the moment of truth. Will it turn on?
Please. Okay. Oh my god. Oh, thank God, thank God.
No, wait a second. Yes, the machine is on. However, if you look at the motherboard lights, my DRAM and CPU lights are solid, which means something wasn't communicating properly between the two. This meant that there was no boot to BIOS menu, and it reflected in the black screen on the monitor. I ended up calling my best friend's father, and after a few questions regarding the build, he immediately caught something in the manual that was off.
By chance, are your RAM sticks in the correct slots?
He was totally right. I had both sticks in the secondary slots, so after a quick change and some further troubleshooting, we got this the next morning.
Switching the RAM, fix it.
Please. Oh my God. Please turn on. Yes. Yes. Let's go.
It was a complete success. All that was left was redeeming the operating system key and adjusting a few settings in the BIOS menu to maximize performance. The build is complete, and now it's time for one final thing. Hey, thanks for watching the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and once again I apologize for the inconsistent upload schedule. I know I've been kind of back and forth and very sporadic when it comes to my upload schedule, but I spent a long time on this one, and I promise the next one won't be nearly as long, and I'll probably be uploading pretty soon. But until then, I really appreciate the support, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.